Good morning, everyone. Before I share my Nuffield journey with you, I want you to think of this situation. You've planted a tree crop orchard. You've tended to it for 10 years. You've grown the crop. It's on the cusp of being harvested. All of your financial outlay and your reward sits on the trees and is ready to go. 4 hours later, a severe tropical cyclone crosses the coast and 95% of your orchard is destroyed. That is the exact situation that bestowed my family farm in 2006 with Tropical Cyclone Larry, again in 2011 with Cyclone Yasi, and has been an ongoing risk that we have faced in the entire time that I've farmed. That has led me to my passion of understanding this very question. Can Australia's tree crop sector withstand future cyclonic events? Before I share my journey with you, I wanted to take a moment to thank a few special people. First of all, Westpac Agribusiness, who are my scholarship sponsor, and whom without their generous support, none of this would of course be possible. The Nuffield Australia Board and the senior leadership team, who have been incredibly welcoming and flexible throughout my journey. And of course, my fellow scholars, my family. I don't split my family from my Nuffield family because they are now one family. And I must say, the counsel, the guidance, and the friendship that has been forged over the last few years has been phenomenal. When I started my Nuffield journey, I asked myself a very real question. I had a view that tree cropping in cyclone regions was the most important thing that Australian agriculture could possibly need to solve. I had about 3 conversations with fellow scholars, and I realized that's a bit bollocks. There are so many problems out there in every industry that need to be resolved, and mine is just one of a big series of issues. And so I asked myself, does this actually matter? Is this something that needs to be looked into, or am I just a little bit funny? And overwhelmingly, I found, yes, this is a risk, this is an issue. And not only is it an issue now, it's an issue that is projected to get worse, and it is something we need to look into. As you can clearly see on that figure above, North Australia is not immune to tropical cyclones. That's track mapping for 40 years of cyclones that have crossed the coast of Australia. As you can see, the darker colours, which represent categories 3, 4, and 5 cyclones, they are overwhelmingly obvious on the page. So this is not an issue that's going away. I make a comparison around cyclone damage to Tropical Cyclone Tracy, which many people in this room probably remember, and Dan might even have lived through, not sure. It's widely regarded as Australia's deadliest cyclone. It claimed 66 lives. Comparatively, dollar for dollar, converted to today's current value, the impact to agriculture from Tropical Cyclone Tracy is 1/10 the value of some of the impact we have seen in events over the last 15 years. This is a real issue. And we face this issue on a global scale. Australia is not alone in this fight. Tropical cyclones, typhoons, hurricanes, they affect agriculture on a global scale every year. Between 80 to 100 events occur, and what's staggeringly concerning is that in the last 50 years, the anticipated cost and damage sits at around the $1.4 trillion mark. That's a significant impact and potential disruption to our supply chains, biodiversity, and all of the things that us as growers are known for doing. My concern is, and what I found in my research, was that there is an evolving trend where we are seeing fewer cyclones on a yearly basis, but the severity of those events is increasing. This basically means less cyclones every year, but the cyclones we're going to get are going to be wipeout events. And there's very few farms that have the resilience to accommodate that year on year. There's also some long-term tracking which suggests that we're going to see the evolution of a new category of cyclone, a Category 6 event. This would have winds in excess of around 330 kilometres an hour. I'm not sure my house could withstand that. In my travels, I looked for a golden solution. I looked for something that would solve this problem, and I didn't find it, and that was a bit concerning. But what I did find was a number of options, things that growers can put in place to manage and mitigate risk. However that is, depends entirely on the farming operation, where it sits, the resourcing that it has, what it grows, and what its appetite for change is. On-farm management measures, I think, are the most critical ones. These are the ones that sit with growers and ultimately are the ones that we can enact right now. The 4 key findings that I had are high-density plantings, trellis plantings, canopy management, and the potential for greenhouse and glasshouse production. We've seen in a number of crops across the globe the adoption of high-density plantings. It's very, very common in some of the temperate parts of Australia, as well as in New Zealand and other horticulture regions. Additionally, planting on trellises is also a supporting mechanism, works quite well. However, I say that this is a caveat with a touch of salt, because if there's any Kiwis in the room, in 2024, Tropical Cyclone Gabrielle crossed the New Zealand coast and demolished 95% of the trellis crops in the Hawke's Bay region. So this solution may not necessarily be the best solution, but it is an option. Canopy management is around managing the tree from the onset, creating a smaller, more diverse tree which has the ability to withstand cyclonic winds and potential impacts. If we throw those traditional growing methods out the window, which may very well be where we're heading, we need to look at greenhouse or glasshouse production, and certainly in many countries, the Netherlands is a fantastic example. They've clocked onto this and they have fantastic vertical integration in that space. In Japan, I saw mangoes grown in climate-controlled hothouses out of season, which is a fantastic innovation. But there's a lot of work to do before we can take all of our tree crops, put them in pots and put them in greenhouses, and it's an incredibly expensive journey. Nursery production is also a critical consideration. My research found that for a significant aspect of damage control, poor plants coming out of mass-produced nurseries was a significant factor. When I was in Israel, I visited a number of nurseries that were looking at 2 things. 1, can we use a particular type of pot to develop a stronger tree? And 2, are there cultivar selections, so variety selections, that can actually be adopted to solve the problem? We know in Australia, for example, the bulk of our lychees are grown from marcots. And if anyone's not sure what a marcot is, it's effectively a tree taken off a tree. It has no taproot. It's a very weak tree, but it's great for production. Marcots don't survive cyclones. So we need to look at our production methodology and our way we're propagating trees and factor that in. The last one is around government-backed support. And I put this last because I think all growers in the room will agree. We probably can't wait for the government to come to the party on this one. But the big one I did find was government-backed insurance. When I was in the United States, I visited a number of tree crop farms. This particular photo shows a very early nut crop. It is just set. Farmers there were telling me that their set is 4% below the anticipated average, and they have already made a crop insurance claim. By comparison, we have nothing like that in Australia, but it is potentially a solution. Conversely, changes in approval requirements to make it easier for farmers to construct greenhouses and hothouses is an absolute must. In Queensland in particular, we have some antiquated planning laws that make this a very big challenge for growers. And finally, chemical registrations. We need to get with the APVMA and make it easier for growers to access chemicals. The key need for chemicals in this space is that when I visited Malaysia, they have clocked how to grow longens out of season by creating floral induction, starting off the fruit cycle using chemicals. If we can do that here in Australia, we can potentially grow our crops out of cyclone season and de-risk our industry. My final thoughts. Cyclones are a current and evolving risk. The risk is not going away. Global food security and biodiversity is at risk. Any horticulture grower in the room will tell you biodiversity is a key consideration for tree crops. I'm very proud to say that whilst I travelled the world, 45 kilometres up the road from my house is a research institute that is actually leading the way in this area, I should say. Mitigation measures are costly, but farmers, we're resilient and we're adaptive. So my challenge and what I take forward to my fellow growers is, let's be part of the solution. Let's not wait for the problem to become one we can't solve. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.